Hi, I'm Barry Ritholtz, and I'm here with the Spark Network, and I am chatting with Erin Brockovich, who is decidedly concerned about our water supply. Her new book is called Superman's Not Coming, Our National Water Crisis and What We the People Can Do About It. Erin, once again, you're finding some toxic materials in our food supply and drinking water. I thought we took care of that 40 years ago.
Hi, Barry. It's nice to be here. What an opening question. There, I laugh because it's certainly not funny. Oh my gosh, I have been out here watching this water crisis ever since I began my work in Hinckley, not get better, but steadily get worse. And I'm deeply concerned. We are in a national water crisis for numerous reasons. Whether we have old antiquated infrastructure, lead contamination, Legionnaire outbreaks, chloramines, not dealing with our water appropriately, lack of water, aquifers running dry, chromium-6, TCE, in particular right now, a chemical that is just not touched. It has touched every part of America, let alone globally, which is PFOAs, PFCs, PFAS, all you would know as Teflon, firefighting foams. These chemicals are used in flame retardants, Scotchgard, textiles, paper, everything, Teflon pans. It has been known to be a toxic compound since 61, and it is running rampant in our water supplies. And it is now in our food chain. It is uptaken in dairy farming, in cattle, in eggs, in donkey milk. It's very deeply concerning how widespread this one chemical, which is called the forever chemical, is impacting the environment.
Yeah, but
that's the short end of it.
It's a little bit of fire retardant. How bad can that be in your food supply? You have a little bit. What's the downside to this stuff?
Well, oh my gosh, the illnesses and diseases that it causes. So when Scott Pruitt was head of the EPA, he was actually hiding the studies. We had to push really hard to get that information to come out. And so the links that they're starting to make with this one chemical to infertility, to kidney problems, to high cholesterol, to associated with other diseases is on the rise. We're not talking small amounts. So it's so hard to explain it. Just if I could do water 101 here real quickly, or how we got to where we did and how we're doing things ass backwards. EPA on this particular chemical in the 60s, the EPA was notified that in the 60s, 3M and DuPont knew that this chemical was causing cancer in dogs and rabbits. And so, they have to kind of be careful about what they do, just be on the lookout. So the EPA decides for this chemical, they'll set a guideline. A guideline, it's not a maximum contaminant limit, which is law, it's a guideline that municipalities can allow this chemical through their system up to 400 parts per trillion. Okay, so that's what everyone follows. Now, mind you, this chemical is running rampant everywhere. And as long as it's up to 400 parts per trillion, it's coming through the system. So what happens after something like that is the EPA has to commission a study to look at this chemical and what it does in the environment or what it could do to public health. So these studies cost millions and millions of dollars for each chemical. So EPA sets out to do that. These studies also take a very long time, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. So what happens in the moment that I think that we're in is science is now catching up with policies. So here it is, 2016, studies are coming in, and guess what? Houston, we have a problem. This is a dangerous chemical. It's everywhere. We're finding out it can cause this disease, high cholesterol, infertility, testicular cancer, sterility in both sexes, we have a problem. So the EPA runs to say, okay, the 400 parts per trillion is too high. We're going to reduce it to 70 parts per trillion. Okay, that creates another whole problem with every municipality in America going, what? We don't have the funding to bring that down to 70 parts per trillion. You told us 400 parts per trillion was safe. Then the next thing that happens for me is I suddenly get all these emails from everyone. We've gotten notices in our water. It exceeds 70 parts per trillion. It's been on the Air Force bases. We have a huge problem. It's in our well. Is this why my son has testicular cancer? Is this why my wife has thyroid disease? And we have a huge problem when you shouldn't have let something into the system in the first place, knowing that it was a problem and knowing that studies take 20 years. And now we have a real shitstorm happening. I don't know any other way to say it than that. With this one chemical that's difficult to get out of the environment, that has affected every single state. It's a global problem, and our food chain. That's an issue.
Let's extrapolate this. You mentioned sterility and infertility. This has been in our food supply for decades. Projected out a couple of decades. What happens if we don't clean it up? Where are we in 2050?
Well, Shahana Swan, and there's a new book coming out, it may be out right now, on this one chemical and studies that they have done, and the projection for by 2045 is, we could be looking at close to 100% of sterility.
Wow. That's some number. That's unbelievable. So in other words, we don't clean this up and America loses the ability to have babies. That's crazy.
Boy, yeah. I mean, that's apocalyptic, don't you think? Wouldn't that be the end of mankind, humankind?
Yes. Well, it certainly sounds like it's something we should be concerned about.
We should be concerned about it. And, she's just really spotlighted one issue about it. But, I work on this issue over in Australia, too. And we've seen where they can't, use the cattle for meat anymore. They have to be slaughtered. They can't eat their oysters. And it's proven here, we're working up in Maine. There was a dairy farm up there. So let's put this in perspective. So if they're talking about 400 parts per trillion, which is now 70 parts per trillion, when you're finding it in the cow's milk at 80 to 100,000 parts per trillion,
right?
These are numbers we're talking about, where there's bases, military bases, Air Force bases that have 2.2 million parts per trillion in their well water. These are big numbers. Yeah. And it's a scary scenario. So she's really projecting in the book by Shahana Swan, this one issue with fertility, and the endocrine system is horribly disrupted by this chemical, and that it's everywhere and in the food chain. I'm perplexed why we're not what are we doing? Huh. Why are, see, here's the thing that frustrates me. If we'll recognize this issue, if we'll have the national conversation about it, it's going to take everyone working together to make this better. There will be solutions to how we can clean it up. And to how we can monitor the health impacts, what we can do to counteract that. We're here as a society, and we know this, science and medicine and all of it's built to that place. But whether we don't want to talk about it, I think burying our head in the sands is a mistake. We need to see that this is happening. We need to see the big picture. We need to have the big conversation. This is not only our conversation, it's a global conversation.
Well, I'm
what
looking
we're going
forward
to do to moving forward to change its trajectory in our course.
Well, I'm looking forward to our conversation on March 23rd, where we're going to spend a lot more time discussing not only this, but the arc of your career, how you found yourself suddenly being a toxic site whistleblower, and
toxic
talk about
Avenger.
That's right, and talk about what sort of risks and opportunities the current era presents us. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
Well, I am too. And, listen, I think sometimes the title Superman's Not Coming that unnerves people. But I'm inspired by it. You know what? We don't need Superman. Here's the thing. We have forgotten to believe in us, we the people.
And we can do it ourselves.
We can, and we have the brain power, we have the technology, we have the heart. Come on, we got this, but we just are going to have to engage in it and with it. But there was no Superman coming. I think that we the people need to take a good, long, hard look at ourselves and realize how good we are and how smart we are and the heart we have. And I think we can chop our way through this. I'm going to bank on us. Once we recognize no one's coming to save us but ourselves, we're going to get busy doing just that.
That sounds great. Thanks so much, Erin. I'm really looking forward to this.
I'm looking forward to it too. Thank you.
Please visit sparknetwork.com for your complimentary registration.